The morning sun filtered through the stained glass windows of our family's Virginia estate, casting kaleidoscopic patterns across the polished oak floors. It was June 12, 1987, and I, Rachel Harper, stood in the grand foyer, my heart pounding, as I adjusted the lace veil of my wedding gown. At 25, I was poised to marry Lincoln Hayes, a dashing army captain with ambitions as lofty as the chandeliers above us. The air buzzed with anticipation, red roses and white lilies adorning every surface, their sweet scent mingling with the nervous chatter of guests. My reflection in the gilded mirror showed a woman radiant yet uneasy, her auburn curls pinned beneath a pearl-encrusted headpiece. But this wasn't my first time living this day. I was reborn, thrust back from a future of betrayal and heartbreak, my mind a storm of memories from a life that ended in rage and ruin. In my previous life, I married Lincoln as planned, a union arranged by our families to cement alliances. My father, Senator John Harper, was a pillar of Virginia politics synonymous with power and philanthropy. My mother, Eleanor, inherited a tech empire from her father, a fortune that dwarfed even the grandest estates in Fairfax County. I believed Lincoln loved me, his gentle smiles and promises of a shared future, closing my eyes to his true nature. For over 50 years, I poured my soul into our marriage. When he fell gravely ill, I tended to him with unwavering devotion, brewing chamomile tea at dawn, adjusting his pillows through sleepless nights, and reading his favorite novels aloud as his strength faded. I thought loyalty would bind us, that love would endure. I was wrong. On his deathbed, surrounded by relatives in a sterile hospital room, Lincoln drafted his will with a trembling hand. His eyes, once warm, were cold as slate as he bequeathed everything, our sprawling home, the investments I'd nurtured, even the vintage Mustang we'd restored together, to Yvonne Carter, our neighbor, and her son. The room fell silent, the air thick with shock. Then he turned to me, his voice a venomous hiss. "If I'd known your family's empire would crumble so fast, Rachel, I'd never have let your father's influence force me from Yvonne. She was pregnant with my son when you took her place. You, a corrupt senator's daughter, dared to call yourself my wife. Everyone cursed you for it, shameless." His words pierced me like shards of glass. I'd heard whispers of his affair, but to listen to him confess it so brazenly, to see Yvonne's name etched beside his on a tombstone he'd bought in secret, it shattered me. At his funeral, Yvonne swept in her son at her side, accepting condolences as his true widow. Fury consumed me, my vision blurring red. A brain hemorrhage stole my breath, and I collapsed, the world fading to black. When my eyes opened again, I was here back in 1987, standing in my wedding gown, the same roses blooming, the same guests murmuring. But this time I knew the truth. Lincoln Hayes wasn't my destiny, he was my downfall. The realization hit like a thunderclap, my fists clenching until my nails bit into my palms. The pain grounded me, confirming this wasn't a dream or a dying hallucination. I was reborn, and so was Lincoln. His sharp blue eyes, no longer shy or adoring, fixed on me with contempt as he strode across the foyer. The crowd parted, their silk dresses and tailored suits rustling. He wore his army dress uniform, medals gleaming, but his face was a mask of disdain. Before I could speak, he seized Yvonne's hand. She stood nearby, blonde and demure in a peach dress, and raised it like a trophy. "This wedding's off," he declared, his voice echoing off the marble walls. "Rachel, you think a corrupt senator's daughter deserves me. I'm destined for greatness, a general's stars, not your tainted name. Yvonne's purity suits me. Get out of my sight." The guests gasped, their champagne flutes trembling. My brother Ethan, a major in the army, pushed through the crowd, his jaw tight. "Lincoln, have you lost your mind?" he growled. "This is Rachel's day." But Lincoln's sneer only deepened, and his mother, Mrs. Evelyn Hayes, hurried forward, her smile as false as her pearl earrings. "Now, Ethan, dear, it's just nerves," she cooed, her hand reaching for mine. "Lincoln's overwhelmed. Our families set this engagement years ago." I flinched at her touch. Memories of her future betrayal flooding back, she'd sabotage my health, ensuring I'd never bear children, all while hiding Lincoln's son next door. I stepped back, my veil swaying. This wasn't the shy Lincoln of my first wedding day, nor the doting fiancé who'd once kissed my hand under these chandeliers. This was a man reborn with the same arrogance that destroyed me. But I was different too. I wouldn't beg, wouldn't cry. My heart, scarred but stronger, pulsed with purpose. I scanned the room, my gaze landing on Sam Wheeler, leaning against a pillar. His worn jacket and calloused hands marked him as the worthless mechanic Lincoln mocked, but his hazel eyes held a quiet devotion I'd overlooked in my past life. Sam had loved me from afar, protecting me in shadows, never asking for anything. Today, I'd choose differently. Sam. I called, my voice steady despite the crowd's murmurs. He straightened, surprise softening his rugged features. Will you marry me right here, right now? The room froze. Lincoln laughed a harsh bark. A stunt, Rachel. You're pathetic. But Sam's eyes locked on mine, searching for truth. Rachel. I'm just a mechanic, he said softly. I've got nothing to offer. I smiled, my inheritance, mother's tech fortune, burning in my mind. I have enough for both of us, I replied. Say yes? His hesitant but warm nod sparked something new in me, hope. As the organist faltered and guests whispered, I felt the weight of my rebirth. This was my chance to rewrite my story, to break free from Lincoln's betrayal. And hey, if you're as invested in this journey as I am, hit that like button, drop a comment about who you're rooting for, and subscribe to our channel for more twists in this saga of revenge and redemption. Let's see where this new path leads together. The chandelier light glinted off the crystal flutes, casting prisms across the faces of stunned guests in our Virginia estate's grand hall. My white gown shimmered as I stood beside Sam Wheeler, my hand in his calloused palm, his shy nod still echoing in my mind. Moments ago, I'd proposed to him, a mechanic scorned by high society, defying Lincoln Hayes' cruel rejection. In his pressed army uniform, Lincoln stood with Yvonne Carter, his mistress from my past life, her peach dress a mockery of innocence. His declaration to end our engagement still hung in the air. A corrupt senator's daughter like you doesn't deserve me. Yvonne is the wife of a future general. The words, sharp as a blade, were meant to humiliate me before Fairfax County's elite, but this time I was reborn, armed with memories of his betrayal. I'd endured 50 years of Lincoln's deceit in my previous life. Our family's name was tarnished after my father's political scandal, a frame-up by rivals. The Hayes family, once eager allies, turned cold. Lincoln, who'd courted me with poetry and promises, became distant, his gentle words replaced by sneers. His mother, Evelyn Hayes, who'd called me daughter before the wedding, orchestrated my misery. She slipped herbs into my tea, ensuring I'd never conceive a secret I uncovered only after decades of heartbreak. Meanwhile, Lincoln's son with Yvonne lived next door, a truth the Hayes family hid, while I slaved to win their approval, washing dishes and scrubbing floors in their cramped colonial home. My devotion was repaid with a will that gave everything to Yvonne and her son, Lincoln's final sneer branding me a shameless usurper. Now reborn, I saw through their facade. Lincoln's eyes, cold and calculating, swept over me as he gripped Yvonne's hand. You're nothing without your father's name, Rachel, he spat, his voice carrying over the murmurs of guests. The Harpers are finished. Senator John's corruption will drag you all down. I'm meant for more. The crowd shifted uneasily, their silk dresses and pinstriped suits rustling as they whispered about my family's supposed ruin. My brother Ethan, a major with a chest full of medals, stepped forward, his face flushed with anger. This is your wedding day, Lincoln, he growled. You dare slander our family. Rachel's been nothing but loyal. Evelyn Hayes hurried to Lincoln's side, her smile as brittle as her oversprayed hair. Oh, Ethan, it's just a misunderstanding, she said, her voice syrupy. Lincoln's under pressure, too much champagne last night, that's all. Rachel, dear, he doesn't mean it. You're like my own daughter. Her hand reached for mine, but I recoiled, memories of her future cruelty burning bright. In my past life, she'd bragged about my pedigree to neighbors, only to shun me when father's rivals framed him for embezzlement. The Hayes family dined on my family's generosity. Father's connections secured Lincoln's captain rank, yet they discarded me like a worn-out dress. I straightened my veil, catching the light. No, Evelyn, I said, my voice calm but firm. Lincoln made his choice clear. There's no need to force this marriage. Her eyes widened, panic flickering beneath her powdered facade. Rachel, don't be rash, she stammered. Our elders set this engagement. Lincoln's just excited. But Lincoln scoffed, his disdain unmasked. Why waste time on her, he said, turning to the guests. The Harpers are collapsing. Senator John's a crook, and Rachel's clinging to a sinking ship. I'm destined for greatness, company commander, then general. Yvonne's family is spotless, unlike this tarnished clan. The crowd's murmurs grew louder, some guests edging toward the exits, their loyalty to our family wavering. 1987. Virginia politics and reputation were everything, and Lincoln's accusations struck deep. My father, a senator known for funding schools and hospitals, was no saint but wasn't corrupt. From my past life, I knew that his scandal was a setup by jealous rivals, a truth Sam Wheeler would later uncover. Ethan's fists clenched, his military bearing rigid. "You've got some nerve, Hayes," he said. "Rachel's been kinder to you than you deserve. If you want out, fine, but slandering us on her wedding day, that's low even for you." I glanced at Sam, his broad shoulders tense, his hazel eyes watching me with quiet strength. He'd been a shadow in my past life, fixing our family's cars and slipping anonymous tips to father's allies to clear his name. He never married. His love for me was unspoken until I learned the truth at Lincoln's funeral. I saw the man. He was honest, loyal, unafraid to stand against Lincoln's venom. "Sam," I said, squeezing his hand, "let's not waste another moment here." His lips curved slightly, a flicker of hope in his weathered face. Lincoln laughed, a cruel edge to it. "Marrying a grease monkey. You're desperate, Rachel. When your family falls, you'll beg for me." I ignored him, and my focus was on Sam. The guest's whispers faded as I pictured a new future where I'd rewrite my story, not as Lincoln's pawn, but as my own author. Ethan nodded at me, his anger softening into pride. "Let's get you married, sis," he said. Lincoln's voice chased us as we turned toward the altar, but it was hollow, a fading echo of a man who'd already lost. The roses seemed brighter, the chandeliers warmer. This was my second chance, and I'd seize it. The grand hall of our Virginia estate glowed under the chandeliers, their light dancing across the polished oak floors and the stunned faces of guests. My white wedding gown shimmered as I stood beside Sam Wheeler, his calloused hand warm in mine, his hazel eyes wide with disbelief at my proposal. Moments ago, I'd rejected Lincoln Hayes, the Army captain who'd shattered our engagement before Fairfax County's elite choosing instead. Sam, a mechanic, mocked as worthless by Lincoln's sneering lips. The air crackled with tension-red roses and white lilies wilting under the weight of whispers. Lincoln, his medals gleaming on his dress uniform, stood with Yvonne Carter, her peach dress a false veil of innocence. His cruel words, "A corrupt senator's daughter doesn't deserve me," still echoed, but I, Rachel Harper, reborn from a life of betrayal, felt only resolve. In my past life, I'd married Lincoln, believing his vows under these chandeliers. For 50 years, I served him, tending to his illnesses with chamomile tea and sleepless nights, only to be discarded in his will for Yvonne and her son. His final sneer, branding me a shameless usurper and their shared tombstone, had driven me to a fatal stroke at his funeral. Now reborn in June 1987, I saw Lincoln's face, arrogant, greedy, using my family's wealth to climb. Sam, though, was different. He'd loved me silently in my past life, fixing our family's cars and slipping evidence to clear father's name, never asking for recognition. His loyalty buried in shadows was my anchor now. "Sam," I said, my voice cutting through the murmurs, "will you marry me right here today?" The organist faltered, the notes stumbling into silence. Guests in silk dresses and pinstripe suits leaned forward, their champagne flutes forgotten. Sam's rugged face softened, his worn jacket out of place among the opulence. "Rachel," he whispered, his Virginia drawl thick with doubt. "I'm just a mechanic. I've got no name, no money. You deserve better." His humility stung, a contrast to Lincoln's swagger. I stepped closer, my veil brushing his shoulder. "I have mother's tech fortune," I said. "We'll build a life together. Say yes." His eyes searched mine, then softened, a shy nod breaking through. "Yes," he said. Barely audible, but firm. Lincoln's laugh sliced the air, harsh and mocking. "A stunt, Rachel, marrying a grease monkey to spite me. Pathetic." He stood with Yvonne, her hand clutched in his like a trophy. "When your family crashes, you'll crawl back." I ignored him, my heart swelling with a warmth I hadn't felt in decades. Sam's calloused fingers tightened around mine, grounding me. My brother Ethan, a major with a chest full of medals, pushed through the crowd, his jaw tight. "Rachel's made her choice," he said, glaring at Lincoln. "You've humiliated her enough. Get out." The guests shifted, some whispering support, others eyeing the exits, their loyalty to our family wavering in the face of Lincoln's accusations. I remembered my past life's pain, how the Hayes family turned after father's framed scandal. Lincoln's mother, Evelyn, had called me daughter before the wedding, only to poison my tea to ensure I'd never bear children, hiding Lincoln's son with Yvonne next door. Their betrayal had turned me from a senator's daughter into a servant scrubbing their floors to earn scraps of approval. Evelyn stepped forward, her smile as false as her pearl earrings. She said, "Rachel, dear, let's not be hasty," her voice dripping with fake concern. Lincoln's just nervous. Our family set this engagement years ago. Her hand reached for mine, but I pulled back, memories of her cruelty sharpening my resolve. No, Evelyn. I said, my tone icy. Lincoln's shown his true colors. I'm done. Her eyes widened, panic flickering. Lincoln scoffed, turning to the crowd. The Harpers are finished, he declared. Senator John's a crook and Rachel's clinging to a dying name. I'm meant for greatness, company commander, then general. Yvonne's family is clean, not like this corrupt clan. His words sparked murmurs, the guests' faces tightening. In 1987, Virginia, a senator's fall was gossip's lifeblood, and Lincoln's slander fed it. But I knew the truth. Father's corruption was a rival's setup, a fact Sam would uncover in my past life. Ethan's fists clenched, his military bearing rigid. You've got no shame, Hayes, he growled. Slandering our father on Rachel's wedding day? You're the one who's nothing without our connections. Lincoln's smirk faltered, but he doubled down, his voice rising. Connections. Your father's a fraud and you're no better, Ethan. A major at your age. You'll be out of the army soon, mark my words. The crowd gasped, sensing a deeper feud. Ethan's promotion to major, earned through valor, had fueled Lincoln's jealousy for years. In my past life, Lincoln sneered that Ethan's rank came from father's pull, a lie he believed to soothe his own stalled career. I turned to Sam, his quiet strength a balm against Lincoln's venom. Let's go to the altar, I said, my voice steady. His eyes widened, but he nodded, his hand trembling slightly in mine. Lincoln's laughter chased us, but it was hollow, a desperate bid for control. The guests parted their whispers, a mix of shock and curiosity. My gown trailed across the floor, the roses' scent, now a promise of renewal. Ethan flanked us, his presence a shield. As we moved toward the altar, I felt the weight of my rebirth lift. This wasn't just about escaping Lincoln, it was about choosing a future where loyalty, not greed, defined love. Sam's hesitant smile was my first step toward that future, and I wouldn't look back. The altar loomed at the end of our Virginia estate's grand hall, its white lilies and candles glowing under the chandelier's soft light. I, Rachel Harper, walked arm in arm with Sam Wheeler, my wedding gown brushing the oak floor, his worn jacket stark against the opulence. Moments ago, I'd proposed to Sam, a mechanic scorned by Lincoln Hayes, who'd publicly jilted me for Yvonne Carter, branding me a corrupt senator's daughter. Fairfax County's elite guests buzzed with shock, their silk dresses and suits rustling as they watched our unlikely procession. Lincoln's cruel laughter faded behind us, but his mother, Evelyn Hayes, hurried forward, her face a mask of false concern. This was my second chance, reborn from a life of betrayal, and I'd face the Hayes family's hypocrisy head-on. In my past life, I'd endured decades of their deceit. After marrying Lincoln, I believed our love would survive, but the Hayes family turned when father's rivals framed him for embezzlement. Evelyn, who'd once bragged about my pedigree, treated me like a disgrace, forcing me to cook and clean in their cramped colonial home. She'd slipped herbs into my meals, ensuring I'd never bear children, a secret I uncovered only after years of anguish. Lincoln, promoted to captain through father's connections, hid his son with Yvonne next door, a truth the entire Hayes family concealed while I groveled for their approval. Their betrayal culminated in Lincoln's will, leaving everything to Yvonne, his sneering words, "You stole her place," echoing in my mind. Now Evelyn's voice cut through the murmurs. "Rachel, dear, don't be rash," she said, her pearl earrings glinting as she reached for my hand. "Lincoln's just overwhelmed. There was too much champagne last night, that's all. This engagement was set by our elders, your father and ours. You're like my own daughter." Her words dripped with falsehood, and I recoiled, memories of her cruelty sharpening my resolve. "No, Evelyn," I said, my voice cold as the marble beneath us. "Lincoln made his choice. There's no need to force this marriage." Her smile faltered, panic flashing in her eyes. She glanced at Lincoln, who stood with Yvonne, his medals gleaming, his smirk defiant. Lincoln stepped forward, his voice booming. "Why waste time on her, Ma?" he said, addressing the crowd. "The Harpers are done. Senator John's a crook caught in a scandal that'll ruin them. I'm meant for more company, commander, than general. Yvonne's family is spotless, not like Rachel's tainted name." The guests shifted, their whispers growing frantic. 1987, Virginia's fall was a social earthquake, and Lincoln's accusations fueled the gossip. My brother Ethan, a major with a chest full of medals, pushed forward, his face red with fury. "You've gone too far, Hayes," he growled. "Slandering our father on Rachel's wedding day. Rachel's been nothing but loyal to you." I glanced at Sam, his broad shoulders tense, his hazel eyes watching me with quiet strength. He'd been my unseen protector in my past life, fixing our family's cars and slipping evidence to father's allies to clear his name. He never married. His love for me was unspoken until I learned the truth at Lincoln's funeral. Now his hand in mine was a lifeline. Sam, I said softly, let's keep moving. He nodded, his jaw tight, but Lincoln's voice cut in again. Marrying a deadbeat mechanic, he sneered. You're desperate, Rachel. When your family collapses, no one'll touch you. I'm offering you a way out. Be my mistress. Yvonne's generous, she won't mind. Fury surged hot and sharp. I grabbed a silver candlestick from a nearby table, its weight solid in my hand, and swung it at Lincoln. Get out! I shouted, the metal grazing his arm. He stumbled back, shrieking, You'll regret this when your father's arrested. The crowd gasped, some stepping back, others leaning in, drawn to the drama. Sam moved swiftly, towering over Lincoln, and grabbed his collar, tossing him toward the door like a flour sack. She said, Get out! Sam growled, his voice low but lethal. Lincoln scrambled to his feet, his face twisted with rage, but he didn't dare challenge Sam's strength. Yvonne clung to his arm, her face pale, her innocence cracking. Ethan flanked me, his military bearing a shield. You're a coward, Hayes, he said. Father's no crook, and you know it. You've ridden our family's coattails for years. Lincoln's smirk returned, but it was shaky. Coattails, he spat. Your father's a fraud, and you're next, Ethan. A major at 28, you'll be discharged soon, mark my words. The guests murmured, some nodding, others slipping toward the exits, their loyalty to our family crumbling. In my past life, Lincoln's jealousy of Ethan's rank consumed him. He'd sneered that Ethan's success was father's doing a lie to mask his own stagnation as a captain. I turned to Sam, his quiet strength steadying me. Let's finish this wedding, I said, my voice firm. He nodded, his hand trembling slightly, but his eyes were resolute. The altar waited, its candles flickering like promises. Lincoln's shouts faded as we moved forward, the guests parting like a sea. Evelyn's panicked voice called after us. Rachel, don't misunderstand. But I ignored her. My gown trailed across the floor, the lilies' scent now a symbol of rebirth. This wasn't just about defying Lincoln. It was about reclaiming my life, choosing a man who valued me, not my name. Sam's hesitant smile was a beacon guiding me toward a future I'd write myself one step at a time. The chandelier light bathed our Virginia estate's grand hall in a golden glow, casting shadows across the oak floor as I, Rachel Harper, walked toward the altar, my white gown trailing like a whisper of defiance. Beside me, Sam Wheeler's calloused hand steadied my trembling one, his worn jacket starkly contrasting with the opulence of Fairfax County's elite. Moments ago, I'd proposed to him, a mechanic scorned as worthless by Lincoln Hayes, who'd jilted me for Yvonne Carter, branding me a corrupt senator's daughter. Lincoln's cruel laughter echoed, but I, reborn from a life of betrayal, felt only resolve. The guests' murmurs grew louder, their silk dresses and pinstriped suits rustling as they watched our procession, the air heavy with roses and tension. In my past life, I'd married Lincoln, believing his vows under these chandeliers. For 50 years, I tended to him, brewing tea through his illnesses, only to be betrayed when he left everything to Yvonne and her son, sneering that I'd stolen her place. His mother, Evelyn Hayes, had poisoned my meals to ensure I'd never bear children, a secret I uncovered after decades of pain, while Lincoln's son lived next door, hidden by their lies. Now reborn, on this June 1987 day, I saw their true faces. Lincoln stood with Yvonne, her peach dress, a mockery of innocence, his medals gleaming as he mocked my choice. Marrying a grease monkey, he sneered. You're desperate, Rachel. When your family collapses, you'll beg for me. Fury surged hot and sharp. I grabbed a silver candlestick from a nearby table, its weight solid in my hand. Get out, I shouted, swinging it toward Lincoln. The metal grazed his arm and he stumbled back, shrieking, You'll regret this when your father's arrested. The crowd gasped, some retreating, others leaning in, drawn to the drama. Sam moved like a storm, towering over Lincoln, and seized his collar, tossing him toward the double doors like a rag doll. She said, Get out, Sam growled, his Virginia drawl low but lethal. Lincoln scrambled to his feet, his face twisted with rage, but he froze under Sam's glare, his bravado crumbling. Yvonne clung to his arm, her face pale, her purity cracking like thin ice. Ethan, my brother, and a decorated major stepped forward, his medals glinting. You're a coward, Hayes, he said. Slandering our father on Rachel's wedding day. You've ridden our connections for years. Lincoln's smirk wavered, but he doubled down. Connections, he spat. Your father's a crook, Ethan, a major at 28. You'll be discharged soon, mark my words. The guests murmured, some nodding, others slipping toward the exits, their loyalty to our family shaken by Lincoln's accusations. In my past life, Lincoln's jealousy of Ethan's rank consumed him. He'd sneered that Ethan's success was father's doing a lie to mask his own stagnation as a captain. Evelyn Hayes rushed to Lincoln's side, her smile brittle. Rachel, don't be rash, she pleaded. Lincoln's just overwhelmed. Our elders set this engagement. Her words echoed her past life hypocrisy when she'd called me daughter only to shun me after father's framed scandal. I stepped back, my veil swaying. No, Evelyn, I said, my voice cold. Lincoln's shown his true colors. I'm done. Her panic flared as she glanced at the crowd, their whispers growing. 1987, Virginia's fall was social poison, and Lincoln's slander fed the gossip. But I knew father's corruption was a rival's setup, a truth Sam had uncovered in my past life. Sam's hazel eyes met mine, his quiet strength a balm. He'd been my unseen protector in my past life, fixing our family's cars and slipping evidence to father's allies, never seeking praise. His love unspoken until I learned it at Lincoln's funeral was my anchor now. Let's finish this, I said, squeezing his hand. He nodded, his jaw tight, but his eyes resolute. The altar waited, its candles flickering like promises. Lincoln's shouts faded as we moved forward, the guests parting. Evelyn's voice called, Rachel, don't misunderstand. But I ignored her. My gown trailed across the floor, the rose's scent now a symbol of rebirth. This wasn't just about defying Lincoln, it was about choosing a man who valued me, not my name. Sam's hesitant smile guided me, and I stepped toward a future I'd write myself. The altar stood bathed in candlelight, its white lilies glowing as I, Rachel Harper, faced Sam Wheeler, my hand in his, my wedding gown, a beacon of my reborn resolve. The grand hall of our Virginia estate hummed with the murmurs of Fairfax County's elite, their eyes wide at my choice to marry Sam, a mechanic over Lincoln Hayes, the captain who'd jilted me for Yvonne Carter. Lincoln's slander, a corrupt senator's daughter, still lingered, but I felt only clarity, my past life's pain fueling my steps. Sam's hazel eyes held mine, his worn jacket out of place, but his presence steady. The organist resumed soft notes, filling the silence as Ethan, my brother, and a major stood beside us, his medals glinting with pride. In the ceremony's quiet, I recalled my past life's betrayal. I'd married Lincoln, serving him through decades of illness, only to be discarded in his will for Yvonne and her son. Evelyn Hayes had poisoned my meals, ensuring I'd never bear children while hiding Lincoln's son next door. Their lies turned me into a servant, scrubbing their floors for scraps of approval. Now reborn, I saw Sam's loyalty, his quiet acts of protection, like fixing our family's cars, and aiding father's allies as my true salvation. The vows we exchanged were simple, his voice trembling but sincere, and as the officiant pronounced us married, Ethan's grin broke through the tension. You've got a better man than that snake Hayes, he whispered, clapping Sam's shoulder. Outside, the June air was warm, the estate's gardens blooming with roses. Guests spilled onto the lawn, their whispers turning to gossip. Rachel married a nobody, one woman hissed, her silk dress catching the sunlight. The Harpers must be done if she's stooping to a mechanic. Another man nodded. Lincoln was right. Senator John was corrupt. The family's finished. In 1987, in Virginia, gossip was currency, and Lincoln's accusations spread like wildfire. The next day, colleagues cornered me at my TV station job, some pitying, others gloating. Rachel, a mechanic. A producer asked, eyebrows raised, Is it true your father's under investigation? I smiled, calm. Just wait and see. Lincoln, meanwhile, announced his wedding to Yvonne set for the following week at their colonial home. Yvonne's from a clean family, he boasted at a local diner, his voice carrying to my co-workers. Unlike the Harpers, she's fit for a future general. Yvonne, a teacher's daughter, played the part of purity, her blonde hair and soft smile masking her ambition. In my past life, I'd learned she'd pursued Lincoln for his potential, not love, using her pregnancy to trap him. Now her smug glances at me during a chance encounter downtown stung, but I held my head high, Sam's ring on my finger a quiet strength. Back home, Ethan pulled me aside, his face serious. Rachel, that bastard Hayes doesn't deserve you, he said, his military bearing softening. Sam's the real deal. Remember when you were 12 and those kids threw rocks at you on the way to school? Sam, just a skinny teenager, stood up to them for a single candy bar you gave him. He's been watching out for you ever since. I blinked, stunned. In my past life, I'd barely noticed Sam too caught up in Lincoln's charm. Ethan grinned. Mom and Dad always liked him. They said if it weren't for your engagement to Lincoln, they'd have brought Sam into the family years ago. I glanced at Sam, who was helping a caterer stack chairs, his face flushed from Ethan's words. It's not too late, he said, softly catching my eye. His humility warmed me, a contrast to Lincoln's arrogance. But the gossip grew louder. At the TV station, a coworker whispered Lincoln's marrying Yvonne Carter tomorrow. Her family's squeaky clean. If the Harpers fall, Rachel'll regret dumping a golden bachelor like Hayes. I shook my head, knowing father's corruption was a frame-up, a truth Sam had uncovered in my past life. My family's wealth was our shield from mother's tech empire, not father's Senate seat. Ethan's loyalty anchored me. I'm not letting Hayes ruin your day, he said, his voice firm. He's been jealous of me since the academy hated that I made major while he's stuck at captain. He thinks father pulled strings, but it's his own failure holding him back. In my past life, Lincoln's envy had festered. He'd sneered that Ethan's rank was unearned, a lie to soothe his ego. Now I saw the truth. Ethan had given up a promotion to boost Lincoln, a sacrifice Lincoln never knew. As Sam joined us, his shy smile easing my tension, I felt my future shift. The gossip could burn my family, and Sam were my strength. Lincoln's wedding loomed, a chance to face him again, and I'd be ready. The fluorescent lights of the WFX TV station in Fairfax, Virginia, buzzed overhead as Rachel Harper sat at my anchor desk reviewing scripts for the evening news. It was June 1987, a week after my wedding to Sam Wheeler, the mechanic I'd chosen over Lincoln Hayes, the Army captain who'd jilted me on our wedding day, branding me a corrupt senator's daughter. My diamond ring, modest but gleaming, caught the light as I scribbled notes, the newsroom's clatter of typewriters and ringing phones, a familiar hum. Outside, the Virginia summer bloomed, but gossip swirled like a storm inside. Colleagues whispered behind coffee mugs, their eyes darting to me. Rachel married a nobody. The Harpers are doomed. My rebirth, armed with memories of Lincoln's betrayal, kept me steady, but the sting of judgment lingered. In my past life, I'd endured 50 years of Lincoln's deceit, serving him through illness, only to be discarded in his will for Yvonne Carter and her son. His mother, Evelyn Hayes, had poisoned my meals to prevent me from bearing children, hiding Lincoln's son next door, while I slaved for their approval. Their final betrayal, Lincoln's sneer that I'd stolen Yvonne's place, had killed me with a stroke at his funeral. Now reborn, I'd married Sam, whose quiet loyalty had anchored me in my past life, fixing our family's cars and aiding father's allies. My choice had shocked Fairfax's elite, and the gossip grew vicious. At the station, a producer, Linda, leaned over. "Rachel, is it fair that your father's under investigation?" she asked, her tone half pity, half curiosity. I smiled. "Wait and see." The newsroom door swung open and Lincoln strode in his army uniform, crisp Yvonne on his arm. Her blonde hair was pinned elegantly, her peach dress now swapped for a tailored skirt, her slight baby bump visible. Their wedding was tomorrow and they'd come to gloat. "Well, Rachel," Lincoln drawled, his voice carrying over the typewriter's hit rock bottom yet, "marrying a grease monkey like Sam Wheeler. I was worried you'd have nowhere to go when your family collapses." Yvonne's smile was saccharine, her blue eyes gleaming with triumph. "Lincoln's so kind to pity you," she cooed. "I'm lucky to marry a man like him, a future general." Her words dripped with ambition. In my past life, I'd learned she'd targeted Lincoln for his potential, using her pregnancy to secure him. My colleagues froze their eyes, darting between us. I leaned back, my anchor's poise unshaken. I laughed, my voice sharp. "Lincoln offered to keep me as his mistress last week. Said you wouldn't mind Yvonne. Is that the generous man you're marrying?" The newsroom gasped, Linda choking on her coffee. Yvonne's smile faltered, her face tightening as she gripped Lincoln's arm. "Lincoln, is that true?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Lincoln's smirk vanished, his eyes narrowing. "Please don't twist my words, Rachel," he snapped. "I said that to humiliate you. You're nothing compared to Yvonne, aside from your family's name, which is worthless now." He slammed a red embossed wedding invitation onto my desk, the gold lettering glinting. "He said we're generous enough to invite you to our wedding tomorrow. See what a real match looks like." Yvonne recovered her smile, returning, though strained. "Rachel, I know you're not over Lincoln," she said softly, her tone laced with venom. "You're stirring up trouble because you're jealous. Bring your family, clear up any misunderstandings." Her words were a trap meant to parade my supposed downfall before Fairfax's elite. In my past life, Lincoln had reveled in my humiliation, expecting me to crumble. Not this time. I met her gaze, my lips curling. "Sure, Yvonne," I said, my voice cool. "We'll be there, my whole family." Lincoln's eyes widened, a flicker of doubt crossing his face. He'd expected tears, not defiance. My colleagues whispered, some smirking at Yvonne's discomfort, others eyeing me with newfound respect. I knew their game. Lincoln and Yvonne wanted to flaunt their perfect union, banking on my family's rumored ruin. But I knew father's corruption was a frame-up by rivals, a truth Sam had uncovered in my past life. My family's wealth from mother's tech empire, not father's Senate seat, was our strength, and I'd wield it. As Lincoln and Yvonne left, their smugness shaken, I returned to my scripts, my ring catching the light. Sam's quiet strength, hazel eyes, and calloused hands grounded me. At home that evening, I told Ethan, my brother and a major, about the invitation. He laughed, his medals glinting in our estate's dining room. "A clown's parade," he said, sipping coffee. "Hayes thinks he's won, but he's digging his own grave." Sam, polishing his boots nearby, looked up, his face flushed. "Rachel, are you sure about going?" he asked, his drawl soft. "I don't want you hurt." I squeezed his hand. "We're not going to cry, Sam. We're going to watch them fall." His shy smile was my anchor, and I knew tomorrow's wedding would be Lincoln's undoing, not mine. The Hayes colonial home in Fairfax, Virginia, was cramped with red streamers and balloons, a gaudy attempt to mimic our estate's elegance. It was June 1987, the day of Lincoln Hayes and Yvonne Carter's wedding, and I, Rachel Harper, sat with Ethan and Sam, my husband of a week, in a corner of their crowded living room. My tailored dress, modest but sharp, contrasted the overdone decor, and Sam's pressed shirt, though simple, fit him like armor. In his major's uniform, Ethan scanned the room, his jaw tight. Lincoln had jilted me for Yvonne, slandering me as a corrupt senator's daughter, expecting my family's downfall to elevate him. Reborn from a life of betrayal, I was here to witness his miscalculation, my heart steady with the truth of my family's strength. In my past life, Lincoln's betrayal had broken me. I'd served him for decades, only to be discarded in his will for Yvonne and her son, while Evelyn Hayes ensured I'd never bear children. Their lies had turned me into a servant in their home, my pride ground to dust. Now I knew father's corruption was a rival's frame-up, a truth Sam had uncovered. Our wealth came from mother's tech empire, a Silicon Valley precursor her father built, not father's Senate seat. That morning, Ethan drove us in our family's Buick, Sam fidgeting beside me. "This feels like a trap," he said, his hazel eyes worried. I smiled. "It is for them." The Hayes home buzzed with guests, their chatter laced with gossip. "The Harpers are finished," a woman whispered, her pearls glinting. "Rachel's married a mechanic, proof they're desperate." Evelyn Hayes greeted guests with a beaming smile, ignoring us, her belief in our ruin clear. Lincoln swaggered in his rented tux, gleaming Yvonne on his arm in a lavish gown, her baby bump subtle but proud. "Well," Rachel, Lincoln taunted, his voice loud, "you showed up in your fancy car, acting proud. If I were you, I'd hide in shame." Yvonne played the soft role, her smile pitiful. "Lincoln, don't be harsh. Even if Senator John is corrupt, we were friends once." Her words were a calculated jab meant to sting. Ethan's fists clenched, but I touched his arm, staying calm. "Enjoy your day, Lincoln," I said coolly, sipping punch. "You'll need it." Lincoln scoffed. "Eat up, Rachel. You won't get meals like this when your father's arrested." His cruelty drew gasps, but we kept eating, letting his words hang. Our family's wealth had propped up the Hayes in my past life, yet they'd discarded me. Now their smugness blinded them. A commotion at the door interrupted Lincoln's gloating. A young soldier in dress greens entered, scanning the room. Lincoln perked up, Evelyn and Yvonne lighting up like it was Christmas. "That's my promotion, officer," Lincoln whispered, straightening his tux. The soldier's eyes landed on Ethan. "Major Harper," he said, saluting. "Your superior needs you back at base ASAP. The commander's upset that you applied for reassignment to give someone else a chance." Lincoln's face froze, his tux suddenly absurd. What he stammered. "I'm Lincoln Hayes, captain. My promotion's due." The soldier frowned. "No, sir. I'm here for Major Harper, Senator John's fine handling DC matters. The brass speak highly of him." The room stilled, guests' eyes widening. Lincoln's voice rose hysterical. "That's impossible. Senator John's a crook. Ethan's supposed to be discharged." Ethan wiped his mouth, giving Lincoln a faint, amused smile. "You're mistaken, Hayes," he said. "I gave up my promotion for you, but not anymore. I'm not stepping aside for trash." The truth hit like a thunderclap. Lincoln's past life promotion, his rise to company commander, had come from Ethan's sacrifice, a fact he'd never known. Guests who'd attended my wedding, expecting our downfall, gasped their faces, shifting from scorn to regret. Major Harper, we're so sorry, a man stammered, clutching his hat. We believed Lincoln's lies. Another added that we thought the Harpers were done. Forgive us. I laughed lightly, my voice cutting through. Misunderstanding. You came to gloat with the Hayeses. We were never that close. Ethan nodded, his eyes cold. You ran when you heard corruption. Don't pretend it's guilt now. The guests flushed their apologies hollow. They'd flocked to Lincoln thinking him the rising star, but the Harpers stood tall. At home that evening, our parents, back from a DC conference, greeted us warmly. Mother, elegant in her silk blouse, hugged Sam. You're honest, Sam, she said, unlike Lincoln. Father, his senator's pin gleaming, clapped Sam's shoulder. Join Eleanor's tech firm. You've got potential. Sam blushed, stunned, but nodded. My family's strength, rooted in Mother's empire, was my shield, and Lincoln's wedding was just the start of his fall. The Virginia sun dipped low over our Fairfax estate, casting golden rays through the dining room's bay windows, as I, Rachel Harper, sat with my family in June 1997, 10 years after my rebirth. The table gleamed with crystal and silver, a far cry from the gaudy chaos of Lincoln Hayes's wedding to Yvonne Carter, where he'd slandered me as a corrupt senator's daughter. That day, a soldier's revelation that my brother Ethan's sacrifice had fueled Lincoln's false hopes of promotion had exposed the Hayes lies. Now I balanced my role as a WFX TV anchor with motherhood, my daughter Lily's laughter echoing through our home. Sam Wheeler, my husband, once mocked as a grease monkey, sat across from me, his calloused hands now signing contracts as CEO of Mother's tech empire. Reborn from a life of betrayal, I marveled at our rise, my heart steady with purpose. In my past life, Lincoln's deceit had crushed me. For 50 years, I'd served him only to be discarded in his will for Yvonne and her son, while his mother Evelyn ensured I'd never bear children. Their lies turned me into a servant. My pride eroded. Reborn, I'd chosen Sam, whose quiet loyalty, fixing our cars, aiding Father's allies, had been my salvation. After Lincoln's wedding, my parents welcomed Sam, seeing his potential where Lincoln saw only a nobody. Mother, whose tech firm rivaled Silicon Valley's pioneers, mentored Sam, her sharp eyes spotting his knack for innovation. Father, Senator John Harper, cleared his name with Sam's evidence, proving his corruption was a rival's frame-up. Their trust transformed Sam from a mechanic to a leader. Sam's journey wasn't easy. In 1987, he'd hesitated, his hazel eyes clouded with doubt. Rachel, I'm no businessman, he'd said, polishing his boots in our kitchen. But Mother's guidance, late nights, studying spreadsheets, early mornings at tech expos, unlocked his talent. By 1990, he'd launched a software division, its database systems revolutionizing local businesses. By 1997, he was Virginia's youngest billionaire, and our estate was now a hub for tech moguls and politicians. Lily, 9, twirled in her sundress, her auburn curls like mine, asking Sam to fix her toy robot. Just like old times, he teased, his drawl warm. I smiled, anchoring the evening news while raising her, my past life's pain, a distant shadow. Lincoln's fate, meanwhile, unraveled. His wedding had collapsed into shame, guests fleeing after learning Ethan's sacrifice, not Lincoln's merit, had promised his promotion. Expelled from the army for misconduct, rumors swirled of insubordination. He toiled at Norfolk docks, hauling crates for pennies. Yvonne's ambition, tied to Lincoln's false promise of greatness, grew bitter, her pure facade crumbling. Their fights, overheard by neighbors, centered on money. Her son's formula cost more than Lincoln's wages. In my past life, I'd learned Yvonne's pregnancy predated my breakup with Lincoln. Her son, likely not his, a secret that would soon destroy him. Fairfax gossip, once cruel to me, now mocked them. Lincoln thought he'd be a general. Now he's a dock worker's wife. At WFX TV, colleagues who'd pitied my marriage to Sam now sought my favor. Their whispers replaced by admiration. Rachel, you saw through Hayes, Linda, the producer, said, handing me a coffee. Sam's a genius. I nodded, my ring glinting. My rebirth taught me to value loyalty over status, a lesson in Sam's shy smiles and Ethan's fierce protection. Still a major, Ethan had reclaimed his path, his base commander praising his valor. Father's Senate seat thrived, his philanthropy rebuilding schools. Mother's empire now, Sam's domain, funded startups, her pride in him, rivaling her love for me. Lily's bedtime stories, often about Sam's inventions, warmed our nights, her trust in him mirroring mine. But Lincoln's shadow lingered. A colleague mentioned his recent outburst at a diner cursing my name. Rachel ruined me. I shook my head, knowing his choices, not mine, had led to his fall. My past life's pain, Lincoln's sneer, Yvonne's tombstone had fueled my strength, but I no longer craved revenge. Sam's success, Lily's laughter, and my family's love were enough, yet a premonition stirred as I prepared for a live broadcast. Lincoln's desperation, Yvonne's deceit, their story wasn't over. I glanced at Sam, his suit now tailored, his eyes steady. Whatever came next, we'd face it together, our bond forged in a second chance I'd never squander. The WFX TV studio in Fairfax, Virginia, hummed with energy as Rachel Harper watched Sam Wheeler, my husband, on a monitor during his 1997 Forbes interview. The spotlight caught his hazel eyes, once shy, now confident, as he discussed his tech empire, built from mother's firm into a Silicon Valley rival. 10 years after my rebirth, I'd transformed from a jilted bride into a celebrated anchor and mother to Lily 9. Lincoln Hayes, who'd branded me a corrupt senator's daughter and left me for Yvonne Carter, was a fading memory until he appeared outside the studio, haggard and broken, his once crisp army uniform replaced by a threadbare jacket. Reborn from a life of betrayal, I faced his plea, my heart torn between pity and resolve. In my past life, Lincoln's betrayal had killed me. I'd served him for decades only to be discarded for Yvonne and her son, while Evelyn Hayes ensured my infertility. Their lies made me a servant, and my pride was crushed. Reborn, I'd chosen Sam, whose quiet loyalty, fixing cars, aiding father, had saved me. After Lincoln's wedding fiasco, where Ethan's sacrifice exposed his lies, Sam rose under mother's mentorship, turning her tech firm into a powerhouse. Father's name was cleared, and his Senate seat was secure. Lily, our daughter, was our joy, her auburn curls bouncing as she sketched Sam's inventions. My anchor role thrived, my past life's pain, a distant scar. Lincoln's fall was stark. Expelled from the army, he worked at Norfolk docks, his dreams of generalship mocked by locals. Yvonne's ambition, tied to his false promise, soured. Their fights over money filled Fairfax gossip. Her son, conceived before my breakup with Lincoln, wasn't his, a secret I'd learned in my past life. Now, as Sam's interview aired, Lincoln burst into the studio lot, his face aged beyond his 35 years, his eyes bloodshot. "Rachel," he shouted, dropping to his knees, tears streaming. "I was wrong. Yvonne tricked me. Her son's not mine. You loved me. Help me rise again." The crew gasped, cameras swiveling. Sam, stepping off the set, draped his coat over my shoulders, its soap scent grounding me. His glare fixed on Lincoln. "You dare beg my wife?" He growled, his drawl sharp. Lincoln ignored him, his voice breaking. "Rachel, you're reborn, aren't you? You loved me once. With your family's backing, I'd be bigger than Sam." His delusion stunned me. In my past life, my devotion to him had been worn down by his cruelty, yet he clung to it, blind to his failures. I laughed, cold and clear. "Delusional Lincoln. Sam's my husband, Lily's father, Virginia's richest man. You think I'd choose you? I have a family, a life. You're nothing to me." His face crumpled, but he pressed on. "I'd be a billionaire if you hadn't called off our wedding. Your family's wealth would have made me." His arrogance, even now, was breathtaking. In my past life, I'd learned Yvonne had manipulated him, her pregnancy a calculated trap, yet he blamed me. Sam stepped forward, his hand on my shoulder. "Leave Hayes," he said, his voice steel. "You're not stealing my wife." Lincoln lunged, his desperation wild, but Sam shoved him back, his strength honed by years of hard work and resolve. "You're using Sam to spite me," Lincoln shouted. "He's your tool." I rolled my eyes. "Sam's my partner, my love. You're the one who threw away everything." Lily's drawing, tucked in my purse, flashed in my mind, her sketch of Sam fixing her robot symbolizing his care. Lincoln's claim that my family's backing would have made him greater ignored his betrayal, his affair with Yvonne predating our split. As security dragged Lincoln away, his shouts echoed, "You'll regret this, Rachel." I turned to Sam, his face grim but warm. "You okay?" He asked, his hand brushing mine. I nodded, my ring glinting. My rebirth had taught me self-worth, not just revenge. Lincoln's plea was his last gasp, a shadow of the man who'd once broken me. At home, Lily greeted us, her laughter erasing his voice. Ethan, visiting, smirked. Hayes is done, sis. You chose right. My parents, proud of Sam's empire, nodded. Lincoln's fate, poverty, betrayal was his own making. I looked to Sam, our future bright, knowing his next move would seal his ruin, and I'd watch unshaken. The Virginia dusk settled over Fairfax in 1997, the sky a bruised purple, as Rachel Harper stood in our estate's garden, the scent of roses mingling with the cool evening air. 10 years after my rebirth, I'd built a life with Sam Wheeler, my husband, once a mechanic, mocked as worthless by Lincoln Hayes, who'd jilted me for Yvonne Carter, branding me a corrupt senator's daughter. Sam, now Virginia's youngest billionaire, led Mother's tech empire, his success a beacon against Lincoln's recent plea at WFX TV, where he'd knelt begging for my help, delusional that I'd loved him. His haggard face, aged beyond his 35 years, haunted me, but not with pity. My heart, forged in a past life's betrayal, pulsed with resolve. As Lily, our 9-year-old, played nearby tonight, I reflected on Lincoln's final unraveling, my family's strength, my shield. In my past life, Lincoln's betrayal had killed me. For 50 years, I'd served him only to be discarded in his will for Yvonne and her son, while his mother Evelyn ensured my infertility with poisoned meals. Their lies turned me into a servant, my pride crushed. Reborn, I'd chosen Sam, whose quiet loyalty, fixing cars, aiding father's allies, had saved me. After Lincoln's wedding fiasco, where Ethan's sacrifice exposed his lies, Sam rose under Mother's mentorship, turning her tech firm into a powerhouse. Father's name was cleared and his Senate seat was secure. Lily, our daughter, was our joy, her auburn curls bouncing as she sketched Sam's inventions. My anchor role at WFX TV thrived, my past life's pain a faded scar. Lincoln's plea at the studio had revealed his ruin. Expelled from the army for insubordination, he'd toiled at Norfolk docks, his dreams of generalship mocked. Yvonne's ambition, tied to his false promise, soured. Their fights over money filled Fairfax gossip. Her son, conceived before my breakup with Lincoln, wasn't his, a secret I'd learned in my past life. After his outburst, security dragged him away, his shouts. "You'll regret this," Rachel echoing. Days later, news broke. Lincoln had snapped. In a bitter argument at their cramped apartment, he'd pulled a knife on Yvonne and her son, wounding them. Arrested, he faced years in prison, his name now synonymous with scandal, not glory. At home, still a major, Ethan shared the details over dinner, his medals glinting under the chandelier. Hayes stabbed them in a rage, he said, shaking his head. Yvonne's recovering, but the kid's shaken. "He's done, Rachel." Mother, her silk blouse crisp, nodded. "His choices, not yours." Father, his senator's pin gleaming, added. Sam's evidence cleared my name, but Lincoln never learned. I glanced at Sam, his tailored suit a far cry from his old jacket, his hazel eyes warm. "You okay?" he asked, his drawl soft. I nodded. Lily's drawing of us on the table, a family whole. Fairfax buzzed with the news. Colleagues at WFX TV, once pitying my marriage to Sam, now marveled. "You dodged a bullet," Rachel Linda, the producer, said, handing me a script. "Lincoln's a monster." Gossip painted him as a cautionary tale, the captain who'd schemed to rise only to fall. Yvonne, recovering, faced scrutiny. Her son's paternity revealed in court confirmed Lincoln's betrayal. In my past life, I'd died at Lincoln's funeral, enraged by Yvonne's triumph. Now I felt only detachment. My rebirth had taught me self-worth, not just revenge. Lincoln's violence was his own making, a shadow I'd escaped. Lily ran to me, her robot toy sparking. "Daddy fixed it," she chirped, hugging Sam. His shy smile, unchanged from 1987, grounded me. Ethan smirked. "Hayes thought he'd outshine you, Sam. Look at him now. Mother's tech empire now, Sam's funded schools. Father championed our family's legacy stronger than ever." Lincoln's prison sentence, 7 years, closed his chapter. Released, he'd find no work, a pariah in a town that once cheered him. I looked to Sam, his hand brushing mine. His rise, our love, was my victory, not Lincoln's fall. But whispers of his release stirred a final question: would he dare face me again? I stood ready, my heart no longer his to break. The Virginia dawn broke over our Fairfax estate in 1998, painting the sky in hues of gold and pink, as Rachel Harper, stood in our kitchen brewing coffee. 11 years after my rebirth, I'd rewritten my story, no longer the jilted bride of Lincoln Hayes, who'd branded me a corrupt senator's daughter for Yvonne Carter. Sam Wheeler, my husband, once a mocked mechanic, now leads Mother's tech empire, a billionaire whose innovations shaped Virginia's future. Our 10-year-old daughter Lily scribbled at the table, her auburn curls catching the light. My anchor role at WFX TV thrived. My family loves my anchor role. Lincoln's downfall, imprisoned for stabbing Yvonne and her son, had closed his chapter, but my rebirth's purpose was more explicit now, not revenge, but redemption. Today, as we planned a quiet anniversary, I embraced a life forged in self-worth. In my past life, Lincoln's betrayal had shattered me. I'd served him for decades only to be discarded for Yvonne, while Evelyn Hayes ensured my infertility. Their lies made me a servant, my pride dust. Reborn, I'd chosen Sam, whose loyalty fixing cars, aiding father, had saved me. After Lincoln's wedding fiasco, where Ethan's sacrifice exposed his lies, Sam rose under mother's mentorship, building a tech giant. Father's name was cleared, his Senate seat a beacon of philanthropy. Lily's laughter, Ethan's pride, and my parents' trust in Sam healed my scars. My past life's pain, once a raw wound, was now a lesson in resilience. Lincoln's fate was sealed. After his arrest, Fairfax reeled. WFX TV covered his trial, and my colleagues were stunned. "Rachel, you saw through him," Linda said, adjusting the cameras. "He's a villain." Court records revealed Yvonne's son wasn't his. Her affair predated my breakup with Lincoln. She'd manipulated him, her ambition, a mirror to his greed. Released after 7 years, Lincoln found no work. His name was toxic. Gossip reached me he hauled trash in Richmond, a ghost of the captain who'd dreamed of generalship. In my past life, I'd died at his funeral, enraged by Yvonne's triumph. Now I felt only closure. Their betrayal was a distant echo. At home, our anniversary dinner buzzed with warmth. Ethan, visiting, raised a glass. To Rachel and Sam, proof loyalty wins. Mother, her tech empire thriving, smiled. Sam's our legacy. Father, his senator's pin gleaming, nodded. "You chose right, Rachel." Lily hugged me, her robot toy, sparking a gift from Sam. I reflected on my rebirth's arc. Once blind to Lincoln's greed, I'd learned to value trust. My past life's pain, his sneer, Yvonne's tombstone, had driven me to choose Sam, not to spite Lincoln, but to honor myself. My family's strength, rooted in mother's wealth and father's honor, had shielded us. Sam, his suit tailored, but his drawl unchanged, pulled me aside. 11 years, he said, his hazel eyes warm, worth every moment. I kissed him, my ring glinting. "You're my second chance," I whispered. Lily's laughter filled the room, and Ethan joked with father about politics. Fairfax, once cruel with gossip, now celebrated us. Sam's tech firm funded schools, echoing father's work. My anchor desk, once a stage for Lincoln's taunts, was now my platform, my voice steady. Lincoln's shadow, his plea, his violence had no power. He'd never face me again, his life a consequence of his choices. As we toasted, I looked at the garden roses blooming under the dawn. My rebirth wasn't about Lincoln's fall, but about building a life with Sam, Lily, and my family. I'd once craved his approval, blind to his greed. Now I saw clearly that love, not status, defined me. "To us," I said, raising my glass and never looking back. The clink of crystal sealed my redemption, a story rewritten not in vengeance, but joy. The Virginia sun rose, and my heart, once broken, was whole.